Reading was never easy for me. Words would get mixed up in my head. I'd have to reread the same page over and over in order to understand it. And in school, I was scared to read out loud because I struggled so much compared to my peers. By high school, I'd pretty much given up on reading for fun, which makes the last 5 years kind of unbelievable. The kid I was never would have guessed it, but since becoming a dad, I've read 163 books in 5 years. And I did it all trying to answer one question: how can I be the best dad? Here's how a guy who hated reading pulled that off. I stopped reading and I started listening. Audiobooks let me get everything I loved about books without the parts that always beat me up. My journey started like your classic 20-year-old trying to be better, self help stuff. Then I went into historical biographies and started rereading the things I loved as a kid, like Percy Jackson. Then I got into finance, leadership, sci fi, fantasy, and even let my wife convince me to read some romantasy. Now, this isn't your normal reading journey. My quest took me on every switchback it could, and I loved it. I might not remember every page, but after hearing the same ideas 100 times, 5 lessons have actually stuck. And these are the ones that made me a better dad. So, lesson one: the Stoic Dad. I read a lot of books on Stoicism and philosophy, and they inspired me. So much so that part of my son's name is Aurelius, after the philosopher emperor Marcus Aurelius. I learned from reading that Stoicism is not about being emotionless like I thought as a kid. It's not about being stone cold and manly. It's about being in control of how I respond to different situations. It's practicing virtue, courage, discipline, temperance, and wisdom. Growing up, I romanticized the Spartans and their mantra, with your shield or on it. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. I even made it into a bookmark and I use it as a constant reminder. Because to me, what that means is go and fight the good fight with everything you have. And while you do it, never lose your shield or your honor. Now, as a father, I try to fight the good fight, to raise my kids right and not let the world raise them for me. I strive to be wise, courageous, temperate, virtuous, and disciplined. And I know that even though I'm not perfect at these things, this is and will always be a lifelong pursuit. And my kids give me plenty of opportunities to improve daily at these. Lesson two: discipline. As I transitioned from a very regimented college schedule to the chaos of being a parent, I started to realize that for me, discipline is not doing the same thing every day. It isn't having a perfect morning routine or forcing myself into that grind set. I just couldn't fit myself into those boxes. And I failed endlessly to keep daily routines. Most days I would roll over and go back to bed when my morning alarm rang. Sometimes, as a tired dad, it just felt like too much. But I never gave up. For me, discipline is more about being able to show up in life every day for my kids, however imperfectly, to always be working on myself so my kids have someone they can be proud to look up to. It is imperfectly pushing myself into a better direction. I learned to be flexible and not to let one bad day cascade into a full week or year. Now, I might not be a David Goggins, I might not have a perfect routine, but I know every day I can strive to be 1% better. And that takes us to lesson three: take risks and build. Like most young fathers, I want to provide the world and more to my kids. Most of the stories I read involve characters or people who start with nothing but their wits and a dream. And with that, they build an empire. And boy, does that sound like me. From fiction to reality, every story had the same idea. You leave your comforts, you take a risk, and you fail. And you try again and again until something finally works. Now, I've followed this pattern and I've failed over and over for an endless number of reasons. I have files stacked on my computer of failed business ideas that I tried, and for one reason or another, they just didn't work. But each failed idea pushes me forward. and I refuse to give up. I'm going to keep trying because I know that in order to give my kids the life that I want them to have, I need to sacrifice and take some risks. And in a way, that is what I'm doing with this video right now. And if something eventually works, I will know it's not because I got lucky, but because I kept trying. Lesson 4, stay curious. In a world where an algorithm can feed you whatever it wants, I found it important to choose to learn for myself. The more I chose to read, to study new topics and ideas and people, the more I found life started to make sense. I am now backed with 163 more perspectives than I had 5 years ago, and all of those helped me. I've always been curious about everything around me, but I've never been the best at anything I did or anything I learned. I always found myself to be more of a generalist. I was always okay at everything, and I've learned to embrace that as I got older. I would learn as much as I could about whatever topic interested me in the moment, and I found that however niche that topic was, something would always find a way to help me in other areas of my life. I hope that I can inspire my kids to be curious as well. And as a dad, I want to be the one my kids call when they have a question or need advice. I refuse to let AI replace me in that parental role. So I'll keep learning and I'll keep reading. Lesson 5, be the hero. Now, I love fiction, specifically sci-fi and fantasy. Most of my kids have Star Wars references in their name, and you could always say that I'm a nerd, but I would agree. In growing up, the school systems always seemed to frown on fantasy novels and say they were just entertainment. But I've probably learned more from these books than from most of the self-help books I've read. I might not have powers or magic or the Force, but I can make life magical for my kids by turning life into an adventure. I can be the hero for them, the one who goes through the hero's journey and conquers the dragons of life. I can inspire them by beating the odds when everything is stacked against me. And one day I can be the wise guide, leading my kids on their own main character quest. Fiction will always have a special place in my heart, helping me to be a kid again, to escape the stress and anxiety of life, and to build a reality for my family that is still magical. Now, these 5 years of reading were not done quietly. They were completed in transit, while folding laundry, doing dishes, cooking, walking, wrestling with kids. And 163 books have built a system in my life. They taught me how to be a better dad. And while not a single book has completely changed my life alone, all of them together have made an impact of a lifetime. My kids don't see me reading most of the time, but they see a dad who's always working on becoming better, to be someone who is worthy of being called their hero. Day by day, I move closer to being that kind of man. And that is what 163 books really taught me. Not what to think, but how to be.
This is you and me and Melon. We're both butterflies.
Yeah,
And you are a superhero.
I'm a superhero.
Yeah. You can fly and me and Melon can fly too.
Thank you, baby.